Greetings, one and all, and firstly, I'd like to thank the one person who accidentally subscribed to my channel. Thanks for the support, even if it was a mistake. So shall we move on to me talking to myself and recording it, because I guess that doesn't make me crazy? The topic in my head today is Rey's parents. I still see it mentioned in the forums that I visit, and I don't know why, but I'll play along. Who was her father? Who was her mother? What was her name?
It doesn't matter what her name was!
You know what, The Rock? I think you have a point. But that was a big question after The Force Awakens, and a source of great annoyance after The Last Jedi. It's gonna be tough to get a plausible answer because of what happened in the films, though. To explain, let's go over who Rey's parents are not. Now granted, I'm using logic to form my thoughts, which is very frowned upon by Disney Star Wars. We are not supposed to think. We are simply to watch, nod, and accept what is presented in the moment, no matter how often it changes or contradicts itself. I think I'm still going to use logical thinking, though. Luke is not her father. He probably would have said something to her about that little detail at some point during the times that he was not training her, which was like the entire time that she was on the island. If he was her father, I think he'd be ecstatic to see her, but he just looked indifferent. Actually, he was just annoyed that she was even there. Some have speculated, though, that Luke was the one that left her on Jakku to protect her. If that were the... Hold on a second, why didn't he just take her to the planet with him that nobody could find? That would seem like the safest place. And don't think. Regardless, if that were the case, he'd still want to protect her, which would mean helping her now in any way that he could. And he didn't. Yeah, but then again, he did abandon his friends, and his republic, and his sister, and had thoughts of murdering his own nephew in his sleep. Why the f*** did they do that to him? I guess it's possible that he didn't know he had a daughter? I mean, I really wouldn't put it past Lucasfilm to want to further disgrace and humiliate him by throwing a one-night stand into his past. A deplorable evening of debauchery that left a poor young woman knocked up. Typical male. Or maybe that's why he was hiding. The deadbeat didn't want to pay child support. Han and Leia are not her parents. Just like with Luke, one of them, probably both of them, would have told her. Unless they didn't want her to know, although I can't understand why. Even if they didn't want her to know, you'd think they would have mentioned it to each other in private, wouldn't they? Like when they were playfully joking about Han's jacket and Leia's hair while the Republic burned over their heads as if it was happening in orbit instead of thousands of light years away. You know, it was a special moment. I'm guessing that Han would have said something like, Leia, but before I forget, you will never guess who I ran into. Like a bad penny. Our daughter. Remember her? Remember the look on her face when we tossed her out of the ship on whatever that planet was? It was priceless. That doesn't seem right. And I think that the last thing that Leia said to Han was, if he sees their son on Starkiller asteroid, to bring him home. There was no mention of a daughter, who they knew was there, or a cousin, or a niece, for that matter. Ben was the only one that mattered to them, which would imply that he was the only one that was related to them. The people have also suggested that they were the ones that dropped her on Jakku to protect her. This never made any sense to me. That's like saying that if I want to protect my 5-year-old, I'm gonna go parachute his ass into the middle of a desert. Because that makes perfect sense. Hey, good luck, kid. I mean, this is for your own protection. This hurts you a lot more than it hurts me. 2 tips. Make sure to ration that water. Look out for rattlesnakes. Good luck, buddy. See you in 10 years. But getting back to Rey, protect her from what? The details are very foggy since there wasn't any exposition given at all in a sequel, but from what I could piece together, there was no threat in the galaxy at that time. When she was dumped on Jakku, Kylo was still a good guy. The First Order wasn't known to exist yet. The Republic was in power and they didn't have much need for a military. Everything was peaceful in the galaxy. There would be no reason to hide her or protect her from anything. Except maybe from her crazy uncle. If there was a threat, then why wouldn't they hide Ben? Hide all the Jedi children. So that doesn't seem plausible. But whatever, let's just say that for reasons, she was abandoned on a dangerous planet to starve to death for her own protection. But now that she'd be conveniently back with the family, there's no reason not to tell her now, especially now. But nobody did. No one even hinted at it. Finn was the only one who seemed bothered that she was even abducted, and he only knew her for 25 minutes. Han and Leia didn't seem to give a crap. And when she darkened Luke's door, well, we all know what his reaction was.
Go away!
So the narrative evidence would suggest that she's not a Skywalker and or a Solo. Obi-Wan Kenobi is not her father. Why did I keep seeing people suspecting that? With conviction, mind you. Now this is a pretty good indicator of who is a Star Wars fan before Disney and who climbed onto the sinking ship after Disney. It's okay, you gotta start somewhere. It makes you appreciate the first 6 films more. Now I suck at math, but let me break this down and educate at the same time. There's a little thing called the Battle of Yavin, which is where the Rebellion destroyed the first Death Star in A New Hope. For a historical reenactment of the Battle of Yavin, watch The Force Awakens. That is ground zero in the Star Wars timeline, with things happening BBY, before the Battle of Yavin, and ABY, after the Battle of Yavin. 0 BBY is when the thing exploded. With that out of the way, here's where the math comes in. Obi-Wan Kenobi died in 0 BBY. Rey was born in 15 ABY. You see where I'm going with this? Rey was born 15 years after Kenobi was killed. So please, cross him off the list. Unless I'm missing something. If I am, please let me know. Can Force Ghosts reproduce? I guess another candidate could be Ezra Bridger from the Rebels canon. Helicopter lightsabers and all. From all accounts, he's still alive. He would have been around 34 years old, I think, when she was born. So he could have sired her. Of course, I don't think that someone of his race would produce a pasty white girl, but I guess it's possible, although unlikely. Plus, he's not really that well known to people who don't watch cartoons, so a lot of people would be asking who the f*** that was. Now, if it's one thing that these writers are obsessed with and return to the well early and often for, it's nostalgia. So, who would be left from characters that everyone would know, because that would make it the most nostalgically satisfying. I feel like I'm missing somebody, but they kind of ruled everybody out. Maybe Rey was right. They're nobody. Which is still a little strange to say, because they are somebody. But it's like she was completely devastated that her parents were ordinary people and not galactically famous or something. Damn, sorry to disappoint. I didn't realize that there were conditions for them returning. Now that all said, I still predict that a parent will be revealed, and they will be someone of prominence in the films that everybody knows, which will contradict what we've seen and will completely feel contrived because of it. In other words, she will be so-and-so's daughter because the script now says so. Because like everything else, or at least a lot of things, they're just making this thing up as they go. When Vader was revealed as being Luke's father, it all made sense when looking back at A New Hope. How Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru spoke about him, how Obi-Wan reacted to Luke asking about him. It added up, as did the reasons for not telling him. But I don't see anything like that in these films. And that actually works out well, because it really doesn't matter who they are anyway. At this point, what is the reason for her parents? In the original trilogy, it was central to the story. In this trilogy, I think it's just to serve a purpose. And the purpose being to justify her ridiculously innate talents and abilities. After all, if she's the offspring of some Jedi, then it's perfectly believable that she's an expert with the Force and lightsaber fighting. It validates all of her talents, and people far and wide should just stop questioning it, as if it were only that simple and excusable. And it's not, by the way. Even if they were to go an unconventional route with it, like she's a clone, it's possible. Someone did find Anakin's lightsaber. How is a good question for another time, I guess. But it might have had Luke's hand still attached to it, which would be a better question for another time. If the Kaminoans are still around, which it sounds like they are, Hux did mention using a clone army instead of what they went with. So they could have cloned her from Luke's DNA. And Kylo had Vader's helmet, which might have had some DNA in it, who knows, so maybe she's cloned from Vader. Or a mixture of both. That whole mirror thing in The Last Jedi might support the clone theory. Oh my goodness, could you imagine a galaxy full of Reys? I think I'm gonna erase that thought. It still doesn't matter if she's a clone, though.
Clones can think creatively. You will find that they are immensely superior to droids. We take great pride in our combat education and training programs.
Wait, was that the clone army? You mean they have to train too? I think Rey is running out of options. Now here's a common sense example that everyone can relate to. Riding a bicycle. When you hop onto a bike at a young age, you will tip over and you will fall down. A lot. It's a cruel world, I know, being introduced to physics like that. We all go through it. But if Lance Armstrong was your father, it wouldn't help. You'd still fall down and you'd still have to learn how to bicycle. Yes, we're talking genetics. That doesn't mean that you're born with the knowledge of your parents. No, you actually have to learn how to do stuff. Imagine that. Well, no I mean, this is all common sense, or at least it should be. We can all relate to sucking at something until practice makes us better at it. Like walking. In Rey's case, being the offspring of a powerful Force user might give her a built-in connection with the Force, but it doesn't mean that she could do anything with it. At least not without lots of training and, well, knowledge of what's even possible. And genetics might give her the physical traits to be skilled at lightsaber combat, but that doesn't mean that she just is. Again, not without lots of training and guidance. Doing Jedi stuff isn't a natural ability. Running is a natural ability. You can improve, but you're either really fast or you're not. There's obviously a lot more involved in the Jedi arts.
Spent as much time practicing your saber techniques as your which you would rival Master Yoda as a swordsman.
I thought I already did.
Only in your mind, my very young apprentice.
For 800 years have I trained Jedi. My own counsel will I keep on who is to be trained. A Jedi must have the deepest commitment, the most serious mind. Use your feelings, you must. Younglings.
Anakin! She went into the club, Master.
Patience. Use the Force. Think.
Sorry, Master.
You went in there to hide, not to run.
Yes, Master.
Next time, try not to lose it.
Yes, Master.
This weapon is your life.
I try, Master.
When I was out there, alone, all I had was your training and the lessons you taught me. And because of you, I did survive.
Don't center on your anxieties, Obi-Wan. Keep your concentration here and now where it belongs.
But Master Yoda said I should be mindful of the future.
But not at the expense of the moment. Be mindful of the living Force, young Padawan.
Yes, Master.
Let us not forget, Anakin, that you rescued me from the buzz droids. And you killed Count Dooku, and you rescued the Chancellor, carrying me unconscious on your back.
All because of your training. All because of your training.
Yes, run! Yes, a Jedi strength flows from the Force. But beware of the dark side. Anger, fear, aggression. The dark side of the Force are they. Easily they flow, quick to join you in a fight. If once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny. Consume you it will, as it did Obi-Wan's apprentice.
Vader.
You are strong and wise, Anakin, and I am very proud of you. I have trained you since you were a small boy. I have taught you everything I know. And you have become a far greater Jedi than I could ever hope to be.
Anakin, who was conceived by manipulation of the Force, even he still needed to devote his life to training in order to become skilled. The previous films and hundreds of novels have cemented this as a rule. To shortcut their way around this rule is to crap all over the lore, which we as fans hold in high regard, but they apparently view it as a constraint. So this whole mystery box of who Rey's parents are is much ado about nothing. It doesn't matter. From how the characters acted and through process of elimination, she's nobody's daughter. Until she is, because the script says so. At this point, it's just tying up a loose end. And no matter who they end up being, if they even bother with it, or if she's just a clone, it still won't justify her expert abilities. Remember, she went about 8 days between getting roughed up by a couple of common street thugs to faring far better against 4 times as many elite bodyguards with no training. Oh, and in between then, she nearly killed a Jedi Master and also nearly killed his once top student. There's something to be said about competent story writing, and the sequel trilogy is bankrupt in that department. But just remember, we're not supposed to think. If they don't think about the story, only bad things are going to happen if we do.